We're all muted.
Good morning, City of Lakes Rotary. Why don't we rise and start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Good morning, good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test in the things we think, say, and do. 1, is it the truth? 2, is it fair to all concerned? 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, I think you can have a seat. We're gonna go a little out of order here. I know it's crazy. We're gonna do the song next, actually, because I'm gonna have Addie Cross be our reflection, and she's gonna talk about what she's doing. So, because Markus is here today, and we're talking about teaching, we thought we'd do Teach Your Children Well. So the words are here, sing along with us. The rooters all have come up and sing this. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, really easy. Sing along with us. Ready? You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why, if they told you you would cry, so just look at them and sigh, and know they love you. All right, good job. Mary Pat. Guests and visiting Rotarians.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, we've got so much excitement going on out there. Flowers and poinsettias are arriving, and it's great out in the entryway there. So know that that's out there. But our guest today, we have Addie Cross with us today, who we've been used to seeing online, but she is live and in person. So Addie, do you want to? Oh, she's right there. There you go. Do you want to jump up and say hello to the group? She's going to speak. Okay. We do also have a guest from George. George, you want to introduce your guest today? Peter's here.
Stand up. This is my guest, Peter Shapoval. He's a new advisor with Northwestern Mutual. You want to introduce yourself, Peter?
My name is Peter Shapoval. I'm part of the Shakopee Rotary Club. I was enacted as a member maybe a month ago, so I'm still learning the club and how everything works. But I met George at Shakopee Chamber of Commerce and invited me to come here, visit you guys.
Great. Welcome to our club and welcome to Rotary in general. Thank you. Is there anyone online who is visiting, Brock?
There is. We have Felix Hoover online. Felix, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
It's actually Rebecca Pedersen, but apparently she's under using George or Felix's internet. She's here because she's interested in the speaker.
Welcome, Rebecca.
Yep. Welcome, Rebecca. And thank you, everyone. But yes, I know. Oh, Carol, you have a guest?
Yeah, this This is Brian Herder, my business partner, and he came to hear our speaker.
I thought I'd get away with it. I'm Carol's business partner. That's about all I got going for me.
Thank you. Welcome, Brian. And again, there are some poinsettias in the back that I think someone's going to announce from the North Minneapolis Rotary Club that you can pick up on your way out.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for bringing guests. Keep them coming. All right, announcements. We have, I think Gail has an announcement.
Thank you. Quick reminder that peer group is tomorrow morning. And if you've been meaning to check us out and come and you've procrastinated, that's our topic. So come and join us. If you don't have the information to log in, give me a buzz, Gail Noakes. Thanks.
Thank you. Lisa Moncrief has an announcement. Lisa. And we're going to get you a microphone while you're fixing your ears there. There we go.
So it's not too late to donate to the holiday gift drive for the Boys and Girls Club can give drive. And thank you everybody for who's already donated. There are several. I put a list up at the desk of members, and I want to make sure I check off who has donated. We're trying to gather impact this year. So I've kept track of emails and people who have let me know, but if you could just check your name, that would be great too. And then we have a room in the back for anybody who's brought gifts today to collect, to take to the Boys and Girls Club today. They will be coming at around 8:15, they said, to be able to take any donations back. We'll be doing the same thing next week at the meeting. And wanted to talk about the volunteer opportunity on December 22nd. That's Wednesday. And it's at the Jerry Gamble location. Brock, would you please show where the sign up is? We need more people to sign up. Right now, we have two, myself and my significant other. So we need more people. Hopefully there's more interest in that. We're going to have the holiday party right after our volunteering at Psycho Susie's. So Anna, thank you for coordinating that. But so you can come to the Boys and Girls Club anytime beginning 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. I will probably get there around 1 o'clock. So whoever can make it for 2 or 3 hours to just help the kids pick out gifts and, you know, learn how to gift wrap. I mean, it really is a very wonderful and meaningful way to connect with the kids and learn about the Boys and Girls Club too. We may even get a little tour. We did the last time. So anyway, thank you and have a great rest of the meeting.
Great. Sign up now so you can go to Psycho Susie's. Bill Jackson's going to have an announcement over in the corner over there.
Yeah, just International Service Committee is meeting tomorrow night. This meeting is going to be a Zoom meeting. And if you're interested in joining us, just contact me and I'll send you the link for that. Thank you.
Perfect. And was there another announcement? Yes.
I'm Ann Luce from the Rotary Club of North Minneapolis, and I have flowers for people who ordered them. Thank you so much. And I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. I wanted to note that we are having cold breakfast today because there was some COVID, folks in the kitchen are out sick with COVID. And so we are having cold breakfast today, but we'll be back with hot breakfast next week. Any other announcements? All right, we have an announcement about the Minnesota-Iowa football game, and we are the proud winners of Little Floyd the Pig. This is like, you know, if we couldn't win the game, we won the pig anyway.
So just to give everybody an update, we did win the pig. And so for those of you who don't remember, we had a competition with Cedar Rapids Rotary Club down in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to see who would raise more per capita. So they have a much larger club than us, 250 plus people. And we kicked their butt. All right. I just have to say we kicked their butt. We have almost about not quite $50 per person per capita on what we have raised for Polio Plus. So give yourselves a big round of applause. And then with that, we'll be getting out, anybody who pledged, we'll send out the notices this week. And apologize, Steve Olson used to do that, and now it's up to me. So you guys, it's later and not as accurate probably. So if there's anything, let me know and I'll get those out. And then lastly, we still have a couple, games that are still need to be played for people who said they're going to pledge for other games. We still have the Bowl Madness pick that we need to do, but we do have one winner. So we have the winner of the dinner with Bob and me, which is maybe not even something anybody wants to win. Or some equivalent thing, and we can work that. But and that was for guessing the correct score of the game. So if people remember, the score was, anybody remember? 27-22, right? So it was 49 points, and we had a couple of people with 47 as their thing, but Gail Noakes picked 50, and there is no rule of going over. So she is the winner, and we will be in touch with Gail. And just so you know, the real Floyd of Iowa hasn't been in Minnesota for 8 years. So this is the only thing that we have, because Iowa has kicked you guys' butt every year, and I'm just going to keep that. Now I'll keep this in my office so you guys don't have to, worry about it. But thank you guys.
Thank you,
Scott. Can I speak for a minute about the Minnesota part of it? Scott?
Sure. You can give a report there.
Well, first of all, on the line this morning, there were several people who've pledged and haven't been billed yet. So, Kurt, you've got to get on the ball and hit Keith Johnson, John Vandermeid, Joyce Agnew for their money. But I also, in the process of cleaning out my law office downtown, I came across a letter from Ted Moeller. It was a bet between Ted and me that got this all started. And this is a letter he wrote in 2007 when he was retired down in Florida. So it was fine chatting with you from the Big Island during the holidays. Of course, I knew the real reason for the call, to hit me up for some cash in true lawyerly fashion. Since the cause, the work of the COL Rotary Foundation is noble and has no legal fees built in. I'm only too happy to contribute. It's fun to reflect back to 1985 in the Iowa-Minnesota game. Wasn't Lou Holtz the coach? Yes, he was. In any case, our modest $5 bet, which was the result of your persistent, demeaning, and negative comments about the Hawkeye State, its residents, its football team, and your simple and naive Rotary colleague from that lovely sister state was the beginning. Quite out of keeping with the ideals of the club, I'd say. But as it turned out, I'm glad that our board did not pursue the suggestion of the district governor to outlaw gambling at club meetings or to remove from membership the person most responsible for this annual illegal act. It would have been harassing, perhaps personally, into your legal firm. And then we would not have been, able to put service above self through the contributions to the foundation, which have led to so many good works. The community congratulations to you and the club members for your remarkable success. With a brotherly affection, Ted Moeller. So a bit of history, a $5 bet that I put the condition on it that the winner had to donate it to Happy Bucks, and that was a catalyst. And Ted came up with the idea of let's turn it into a fundraiser. And our first effort, we garnered over $1,100. So we knew we were onto something that would attract the members of City of Lakes. So a bit of history.
Thank you, Bob. We appreciate that. All right, so in lieu of the reflection, I want to introduce Addie Cross today. Addie is our global, let me get this right, our global grant recipient for our club. She hopefully will be. And so I'm going to let Jim introduce Addie, and Addie speak for a few minutes here about what she is doing and how fun it is to be back in cold and snowy Minnesota.
Okay, Addie, you can come up in a minute. For those of you that are relatively new to the club, you may not know much about what the Global Grant Scholarship is. So I thought I would just take a minute. It's a district, well, it's an international grant that all clubs and districts all over the country have the privilege of offering up to 2 scholarships every year. So our 5950 district could sponsor 2. It may be only 1 or it could be 2. But that's one of the byproducts of being member of the International Services Committee, because we get a chance to read and get to know people like Addie and then nominate them to be considered for a grant winner. Now, the global grant is a 2-year grant, and I think the total, and maybe you can, is $25,000, isn't it? A base, so it's like $12,500 per year, which is a pretty big chunk of your fee structure. So, but as part of it, we become partners. So some of you may remember Tom Bird, who was a global grant about 5 years ago. And actually, it was through Tom that Addie learned about our club. So we're just really excited to sponsor her, and she's made the cut. She will be interviewed within the next couple of weeks by a committee from 5950, and then they will choose. We hope we'll choose Addie as the winner. But with that as a backdrop, I'd like to have Addie share a little bit more about her background and her interest, and what she hopes to do with the education that she has and will be achieving over the next few years. So Addie, come on up and share that with us.
All right, good morning. It's so great to be here in person. As you know, I've joined you a few times virtually, and so I'm hoping to be a little bit less groggy this time because I was joining you from El Salvador, where it was 6 a.m. for me. But I'm originally from Elk River, Minnesota. My mom grew up in Coon Rapids. And when she was in high school, a Rotarian came to Coon Rapids High School and talked to her about Rotary Youth Exchange. And so she was a Rotary Youth Exchange student, I want to say 1991, to South Africa. And so when I was in high school, I said, I want to do that too. And so that's how I got involved in Rotary for the first time. I was a Rotary Youth Exchange student to Spain. And while I was there, I met someone who was a foreign service officer. He worked overseas for the US government, processing visas and that kind of stuff. And I asked him, actually met him at a Rotary meeting. And I asked him, okay, how do I get your job? Because by then I was convinced that I wanted to spend my life serving overseas and traveling. So I came back to Minnesota. I went to St. Kate's and I studied international relations. And while I was there, I got a job at the Advocates for Human Rights. And so since I was fluent in Spanish, which I'd learned as a Rotary Youth Exchange student, I worked primarily at the Advocates, which is it's a nonprofit here in Minneapolis that serves asylum seekers pro bono. And so I worked primarily with Spanish speakers and with a lot of people from El Salvador. And so with that, I decided to complete an internship at the US Embassy in El Salvador. And then go back and complete Fulbright research in El Salvador, which I just got back, which is why Scott was saying that I'm really enjoying the cold weather. I got back 3 days ago, so it's been quite the adjustment. But now I'm looking at next steps. I'm in the very long and complicated pipeline to become a Foreign Service officer. And so in the meantime, I am trying to gain my master's degree. I always knew that I wanted to do my master's degree overseas. Obviously, traveling and living in different countries is kind of my thing. And so when I was working at the Advocates, as Jim mentioned, I met Tom Bird, who had completed the Rotary Global Grant Scholarship. So he told me that I would be a good candidate. And I reached out this last summer to the City of Lakes Rotary Club, and Jim, as well as Rob Scarlett, who's joining us online, were very kind to look over my application and give me tips and nominate me so that I'm able to interview now at the district level. So I'm hoping to complete a graduate degree, a master's program in social anthropology or global studies. It depends on what school I get into. But what's really important about the Global Grant Scholarship is that your work aligns with one of Rotary's service areas. And so as an aspiring Foreign Service officer, my work aligns with, and my research also, which I'd love to talk to you about sometime, but don't have the time right now. Falls within the categories of peace and conflict resolution and community development. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm really looking forward to the speaker, and this will certainly not be my last Rotary meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your good work and helping Addie along too. It's my pleasure to introduce our day chair today. Boy, when you get to introduce day chairs, you learn a lot about our members, and we have impressive members. Grant Merritt is our day chair today. Grant grew up in Duluth and spent countless hours and countless summers at Isle Royale in a national park, which instilled in him a strong connection with the North Shore. Grant, I would say, has been described as a delightfully dogged defender of Minnesota's environment. But that became apparent later in life. First, he earned a law degree and completed a 3-year stint in the ROTC. And then he spent several years in private practice on trucking law. But in 1967, he paid a visit to his uncle, who lived a few miles from Reserve Mining's massive mining operation in Silver Bay. And what his uncle described was shocking: vast amounts of waste being pumped directly into Lake Superior. And that did not seem right to Grant. So he began advising the then gubernatorial candidate Wendell Anderson on environmental issues. And by 1971, Grant was tapped to head up the relatively new Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, an appointment that Governor Anderson made. By 1973, Grant's efforts helped impel the Federal Environmental Protection Agency to file suit against Reserve Mining. And it was a long, drawn-out legal battle that eventually in 1980 resulted in the mine moving their dumping to an inland pond. Through all this, Grant realized that citizens need more power to defend the environment. He urged Governor Anderson to pass the Minnesota Environmental Rights Act, which has seen many important, probably the most important environmental rights law in Minnesota. It allows citizens directly to sue on behalf of the environment. In 1995, Grant found a new outlet and joined the Board of Parks and Trails Council in Minnesota. Over the next 11 years, his deep commitment to acquiring and protecting parks and trails has been an incredible asset to that organization. And Grant has been a member of the best Rotary Club in the world since 1994. Grant, thank you for being our day chair today.
Well, good morning. I feel very privileged to introduce our speaker for several reasons. One, he went to Iowa State University. I have a granddaughter and a grandson that have been there. I've toured your campus. And matter of fact, it's one of the most beautiful campuses I've seen. It rivals Minnesota with our mall at the University of Northrop. Markus Flynn is a teacher. And the other reason I feel privileged, I was thinking this morning and last night that I can't think of one Black teacher that I ever had in elementary, junior high, high school, college, graduate school, law school. Now I've lived a long time. Things have changed, but he is the one that advocates for change by his role here in the city with partnering with other organizations. And he has continued his own teaching at a place I'd never heard of before. It's a Prodeo Academy. And he also has a master's degree in kinesiology. I had to practice saying that. I had to look up in the dictionary. So he has a varied and I think a excellent background to further his new job. I think it's fairly new, as executive director of the Black Men Teach. And so thanks to whoever assigned me to be day chair today. Markus, thank you for coming in personally and not being on Zoom. Okay.
So last time I came, the weather was significantly different. So when I woke up, I almost decided to get on Zoom. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I have a brief presentation for you all. So like you said, my name is Markus Flynn. I'm the executive director of Black Men Teach. I'm gonna talk about the organization. But what I want to do, last time I came, I kind of talked about the importance of understanding like the why behind something. And so when I was thinking about when I came back today, what was the most important thing to tell you all? And I felt like it was really grounding you in this context that explains why we do the work that we do. And so I think often when people think about what I call the state of the Black student, typically we're thinking of things that are conjured up by this image here, and it revolves around this idea of achievement. Even when I told you all my why behind moving to Minnesota, the first thing I told you was this Minnesota paradox, where you have one of the strongest education environments in the country from a population level. But when you look specifically at the Black community, you have one of the largest Black-white education achievement gaps. But even achievement itself is a surrogate measure that you have to ask, why does it look the way that it looks? And so what I want to do now is talk about some of the things that really create these conditions that we see where, audio good? Cool. Where achievement outcomes are disparate in Minnesota. And so first I want to talk about this thing called, it's a term called education redlining. And it starts with this historical context of what actual redlining is. So origins of the term at redlining. So the Federal Housing Administration was established in 1934. And it had this explicit intention of increasing America's housing stock. And so these maps were created and they marked areas based on how profitable or how desirable the neighborhood was. And so you see areas marked in green are obviously the places that are the most profitable. Areas marked in red or yellow are the ones that are hazardous, dangerous, avoidable. And so those areas that were predominantly Black were marked as the areas that were non-desirable and the areas we're not going to invest in. And so it was justified as a way to reduce risky loans. And so there's significant impacts on the Black community. We think about what redlining did. So Black families were unable to secure home loans due to these discriminatory practices, which is one of the major ways of building wealth in the US. And so what we see today, the Black home ownership rate is significantly lower, 44% compared to about 74%. In Minnesota, we have, I think, the third or fourth largest home ownership gap in the country. Black homeowners are 5 times as likely almost to be in a formerly red line community than they are in a formerly green line community. And we're talking about homes, the difference in how much their homes have appreciated over that time, $212,000 less wealth generated in property value increases. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because housing and education are intrinsically linked. We see that the median values of homes near high quality elementary schools are 4 times as valuable as homes near those low quality ones. And we see that 70% of schools assignment is based on where you live. Minnesota is an open enrollment state, but even in Minnesota, less than 10% of students actually enroll in a district outside of the one they live in. And we see the effect that this has nationally. Predominantly non-white school districts receive $23 billion less in funding per year. And so what that looks like on a per pupil basis is $2,200 less per pupil in funding. And so this has significant effects. Some data from the Economic Policy Institute, these 2 things are basically saying Black students are significantly more likely to be placed in highly segregated and high poverty schools. That's what these 2 graphs are saying. And then what this one tells us is that has significant impact on actual scores that we see in test data. And so if we're looking at that top bar, that's the math test scores in 8th grade for students who are in low poverty schools. Similar students, but in high poverty school, you see a 20-point difference. That's a significant difference in score just based on the quality of school that you're in. And so next, I want to go into discipline disparities. And so what we see is that bias against Black students starts really early. So this is a study it's a 2016 Yale study that looked at these 4 students. And what they did is they told teachers to just watch a video of these students and click when you see misbehavior. But the caveat to the study was there was absolutely no misbehavior going on. What they did was they used eye tracking software to see where did the teachers spend their time looking. And so I'm pretty sure everyone in this room knows where this is going. But what they did was they saw that the teachers in the study spent 42% of the time looking at the Black boy. 42% when they're trying to just identify misbehavior. And so what that tells us is this tendency to base classroom observation on like race and gender qualities likely explains some of the things we see in these disproportionate outcomes in discipline. And so that tendency has real implications. This number 3.6. So this is Black students in preschool are 3.6 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than white students. This graph right here shows us that although Black students in preschool represent 18% of the student population, they represent 48% of all students who are suspended or expelled in preschool. I don't even know why we're suspending or expelling kids in preschool. But when we do, they're disproportionately Black students. And so this is really important. I'm gonna keep trying to build on this context. This bias persists through K-12. It's not like just preschool, right? We see nationally Black students, Black boys are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled. Black girls have it worse at 6 times more likely. And we see here, Black students represent really 31% of school-related arrests. In Minnesota, numbers are even worse. Black students are 8 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than white students. And there's data that shows that the difference in discipline is not explicitly due to the difference in behavior. So here's a study, and it looked at cell phone expulsions. And so, or suspensions, I believe. So it says 40% of Black students who were caught with their cell phone were suspended compared to only 17% of white students. So we're seeing for the same exact offense, Black students are penalized at more than twice the rate. Another study looking at middle school students, and what this study basically said was Black students are much less likely to receive a verbal or written warning prior to being elevated to something more significant up the discipline ladder. So more likely to be penalized for the same offense, less likely to have some of those things that would prevent you from even getting there in the first place. And the next thing I want to talk about, the next big category is this idea of expectations, right? So we have this historical legacy of redlining starting in 1934. We have these discipline disparities that exist starting in 5 years old when you're in preschool. And then we have teacher expectations. There's this quote I really like, and it says, "We're not products of our environments, we're products of our expectations." So there's this thing called the Pygmalion effect that exists in education, but exists in a lot of things. It was really established, this idea of existing in education in 1968. So there was a study that was conducted, and they had this group of researchers, and they went to these teachers and they said, this group of students tested on their IQ test, and it showed that they have unusual potential for growth. Now, these group of students were randomly selected. Nothing extraordinary about them. I don't even know if they actually did a test. But they picked these group of students and said, these are the ones who have unusual potential for growth. Researchers come back at the end of the year. Y'all probably know where this is going to. That group of students who they randomly selected and identified at the end of the year outperformed everyone else in their class. Teacher expectations are significant. They play an important role in shaping students' beliefs of themselves, but they also can have an impact on student performance. And we saw it in this study. Now, I just talked about how Black students from the age of 5 are disproportionately picked out. Imagine if that goes from 5, right? We see the effect that the Pygmalion effect has in 1 year on student performance. What effect does it have for 13? Right, from 5 all the way up through 18. What effect does that have on your belief in yourself as a student, your affinity to school, your ability to learn, to perform, right? Think about that. And so even when we think about it, teacher expectation, the data is really compelling. And so there's a few studies that compare Black teachers to non-Black teachers and their expectations of Black students. And so compared to Black teachers, non-Black teachers are more likely to perceive Black students to be excessively disruptive, be frequently inattentive, not complete homework. They're less likely to expect Black students to perform at grade level, graduate from high school, complete a 4-year college degree. Right, so again, teacher expectations have a lot of influence on how students believe in themselves. And when they have teachers who don't look like them, Black students have this to deal with from the first day they step in the classroom to the last day that they step out of it, if they're fortunate enough to make it. So I want to switch to some of the benefits of Black teachers and thinking about at Black Men Teach again, why are we focused on this? Why are we actually doing this? Well, Black teachers have tremendous impact on Black students. We see, obviously, they're held to higher expectations based on those data that we just showed. Decreased likelihood of students being suspended. Increased likelihood of enrolling in talented and gifted program. Increased daily school attendance. There's a study by the University of Chicago. I think it said school attendance in middle school is one of the strongest predictors of the ability to graduate college. You even see increased standardized test scores by 3 to 6 percentile points. Now, these are all acute benefits within a year. If you have a Black teacher for this 1 year, this is what you see. But what I believe is even more important is the longitudinal benefits that Black teachers have, particularly in elementary school. So we see when Black students are in a class led by Black teachers, 29% more likely to graduate high school. And in the same study, they looked at the Black boys who received free and reduced lunch over the course of their K-12 career. So they considered them the lowest income Black boys. They were 39% more likely to graduate high school. If you have a Black teacher by third grade, Black students are 13% more likely to enroll in college. If you add a second, it's not an additive impact, it's multiplicative. And it goes up to 32%, 32% more likely to enroll in college, 39% less likely to drop out of high school. Now, the question is, man, that's some good stuff. What's the likelihood of having a Black teacher for one of my Minnesota kids? Well, let's think about this. Between 2008 and 2018, the number of students of color rose significantly, 24 to 34%. But at that same time, the number of teachers of color remained stagnant at about a little under 5%. There's roughly 86,000 Black students in the state of Minnesota in public schools, and there's roughly one Black teacher for every 150 Black students. Now, this out of context might seem like, okay, maybe that's just how it is for all groups. But in comparison, there's one white teacher for every 10 white students. So if we were like, man, those benefits of Black teachers are so tremendous, let's just get a whole bunch of college auditoriums and fill it up with elementary school students. That's what it have to look like in comparison to get that impact. So my organization, we focus on Black men. So the question is, what's the likelihood of having a Black male teacher? Well, this is from Pelsby, their 2019 biennial report. First thing to draw your attention to is right up top, there's about 63,400 teachers in the state of Minnesota total. When we look at the gender distribution, you see there's basically a quarter of those teachers are men, 3/4 are women. Down here, they talk about race, but they don't stratify by race and gender. This is the only table that they have. So you have to make some assumptions. We see less than 1.5% of the teachers in the state of Minnesota are Black, so that's 875. It's a small number in itself. But if we take that same proportion, which I think is a conservative estimate, and say that 1/4 of those 875 are Black men, leaves you with about 220 Black male teachers out of 63,400. That's less than half of 1% of the teachers in the state of Minnesota are Black men. And in my introduction, he said I was a teacher, but I left the classroom for the role I'm in now. So now it's probably less than like a 1/3%. I don't even know. So the question is, why are there so few? And there's some historical reasons, but I'm only going to focus on the contemporary. I think the first barrier is what I talked about. It's this idea of the school-induced trauma. If you're hyper-focused on as this discipline problem from the time that you're 5 years old, it's hard to ever see this as a place that you belong. And again, in Minnesota, about 10% of students are Black, but they represent 42% of all discipline incidents, right? 8 times more likely to be suspended or expelled. So it's hard to really build this affinity for a place that's always pushing you away. Next is the lack of representation. Like I said, less than 1.5% of teachers are Black, less than half of 1% are Black men. The likelihood of seeing yourself is significantly lower for a Black student than it is for a white student. For a white student, it's basically guaranteed. And so you just do not see yourself. And we're thinking about Black men in particular. I don't have the numbers exactly, but I think it's somewhere around roughly 80 to 90% of the teachers in the state of Minnesota are white women. And so even if your favorite, my favorite teacher all time is my 4th grade teacher, it's a white woman. But me in 4th grade, middle-aged white woman, if we live on this spectrum of identity, we're on like the opposite ends. There's no way that I ever looked at her like, that's gonna be me one day. Even though I became a 5th grade teacher, I never was like, this is me. I see it, this is gonna be me. And so that lack of representation is extremely hard to get by, just because seeing is really believing and it's powerful. And I think the last piece is the financial implications. And so I'll talk a little about this because I haven't talked about it before. But just a brief overview, there's data out there that suggests being a teacher is a financially irresponsible decision for Black men. So we see Black college graduates average about $25,000 more student loan debt than the white counterparts. So we had a table of debt compared to starting salary. We see white education majors typically graduate with about $26,700 in student loan debt, compared to an average target starting salary of about $44,000. Black students have to add that additional money on top. So we're talking about $52,000 relative to $44,000. And if you do a debt to salary ratio, Black graduates are 120%, white graduates are about 61%. And so all of this really informs the approach that we take at Black Men Teach. Again, our mission is to recruit, prepare, place, and retain Black male teachers in elementary schools. And our vision is a lot of words, but it basically says we want to make sure that students can identify with the people in their school building. They're affirmed by their presence there and they're supported. And so for us, in order to do this, we take a robust pipeline approach. I'm gonna go through it quickly, but please ask questions at the end. We have a high school fellowship program where we work with men, and we really try to do these three things. Help them develop this teacher identity. And again, it starts with the why. Like, why do we do this work? Provide them opportunities to teach. And if they want to go into elementary education, we have scholarship for them. College at the front is a sense of community, a sense of belonging, scholarships, mentorship, training, stipends for student teaching. Again, when we say college, we're not even just talking about traditional college students. Some of the men that we have in college are 40-ish years old. And so this idea of going into education is really, really, really unattractive when you think, I have to take 15 weeks to work 40 hours a week, but I don't get paid for any of it. I have a family that I have to support. So we provide those stipends for student teaching to help. Career changes, people are looking to get into education in an alternative path. Provide tuition assistance, living stipends, mentorship, supplemental training, placement in partner schools. So we place men in cohorts so that it's not just one here, one here, one here. Try to place 3 at a time in the school so they have some of that support ingratiated in the school. Onboarding support, positive school culture. So we really work to pick the right schools to place them. We add contractual protections into partnerships so that they're not removed from the school early, systematically. We even have loan forgiveness. And then some additional networks of support. So each of our teachers has an instructional coach and mentor. We leverage affinity groups, and then we provide professional development too. And in order to do this, it takes a lot of people coming to the table. And here are some of the people we bring. And these are just some of the buckets to see that, like, it takes a lot, right? It's this entire ecosystem. It's not just us doing this work. We sit at the center, we orchestrate a few different groups to make sure that we all can move towards this mission. And now I'm at 20 minutes. I got my timer up here. I was trying to make that time. I have a 3-minute video that I think shows one of my teachers and some of the work that we do. And I think it'd be good to show. This is where Brock comes in.
Before I was a teacher, I worked UPS, and I also was a football coach for many years. When I chose to transition over to teaching, it was mainly because I just saw a lot of my students not being very successful in the classroom. They were always successful on the football field, but it just wouldn't translate into the real world, the bigger picture. And that's something that I wanted to change.
Mr. White is extremely great at building relationships. He loves to interact with them, get to know them, understand how they like to learn, and that causes students to want to be in his class and to want to come to school and see what he's going to do today.
Let's make sure we got our notepad just in case you got to take any notes. Why I chose to become an elementary teacher is because that means that I can be impactful to my students early enough to want them to stay engaged in learning.
Black Men Teach was created because there's a need. When you have a Black teacher in a classroom, Black students benefit tremendously. We see in the long term, they're more likely to enroll in college, less likely to drop out of high school.
My students don't have to use movies and TV shows for what a Black man is supposed to be. They have me right here every day, teaching them the ropes, the right way.
Student loan debt can be a huge burden that just wears on you over time. I think if we can do anything to make that easier for him, we have to do it.
Oh, okay.
If you just sit down and press the play bar for us.
Hey, Mr. White should be commended for his amazing hard work that he has put in this school year.
Mr. White's a great teacher because he always motivates us. He'll help us take baby steps into making bigger leaps.
Mr. White is very funny. I mean, very funny. He's just very genuine with his students, and he's very good with us.
I can't think of someone who represents the organization better than you. But besides just telling you, I want to go ahead and show you one more thing to show you just how much you're appreciated. Mr. White.
Yep.
Give me a surprise. On behalf of Box Tops for Education and Black Men Teach, we would like to present you with this $50,000 check. This money here is to go to help you alleviate the student loan debt that you've accumulated to get to a point where you can have impact on these young kids' lives.
I do promise you guys I'm gonna be the very best teacher that I could possibly be for you guys. Appreciate it, man. This was awesome. It's definitely gonna help me and my family, but it's also gonna help my students because it's just one thing that I don't have to worry about moving forward.
He's so selfless. He's clearly here to impact students and impact their lives.
I love being a teacher because I get to see growth every day. When you get to see that growth and you get to see the results of the growth, it's really an amazing feeling.
Cool, so that
We have some real problems in this country that are deep and structural that have to be confronted with.
So that's a glimpse into what we do. That's a piece of it, and that's the first teacher we place in the classroom, and looking to continue to build that impact so that there's more students who get to experience Mr. White's. And so now I know we got a few minutes left, but I love questions, see what people are thinking, and see how I can answer some of those things. Yes, sir.
Like Grant, I grew up, I went to Minnetonka schools and St. Olaf College, and I never had one Black teacher. If you're successful with your program, when you're successful, not if, when you're successful, do you have any preference for where you would place these newly minted teachers? Would it be inner city schools? Would you like to see them scattered around the suburbs, rural Minnesota? Is there a focus that you would prefer to see where these people are placed?
Yeah. So right now we partner with schools in the metro. So we partner with the Anoka-Hennepin School District. So Mr. White, he's in Brooklyn Park. I have another school in Brooklyn Center. We have two schools that we partner with in Hopkins. And we have two charter schools, one in Minneapolis, one in Columbia Heights. And so we're building partnerships in the metropolitan area primarily, but as we continue to grow, one thing we want to do is provide like a diversity of school choice for the men to kind of pick where they want to go. Because the benefit isn't just, I know I focus on Black students today, but the benefit isn't specifically just Black students. I think all students benefit from having Black male teachers. I mean, Mr. White has a ton of stories he could tell about that in particular, but soon we'll have a variety of schools across the metro and maybe even into the rural area to placement. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, where do you look to find candidates like Mr. White?
Yes, so it's really all over the place, and like the potential men it's infinite. So we start at the high school level, we look to build the pipeline, but then we also do a lot of recruitment of men who are already in college to see if they're interested in changing path to do something a little bit more meaningful and purposeful. And then we're in the process of now just starting recruiting people who are in their career currently to see if they're interested in some of the alternative pathways that we have into the classroom. But it's hard to say like there's these few places because it's really everywhere. And a big part of it is disseminating our message so that people get to see what we do, sharing the videos like that to see the impact and see who's drawn.
Could you comment, I'm very familiar with Rodeo Academy.
Mhm.
Could you comment a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, so my experience at Prodeo was tremendous. Prodeo is a really diverse school. I want to say maybe 99% student of color. It's heavily diverse. And I had some of the most amazing students I ever met in my life there. I didn't teach for very long. I got called into doing this work. But when I did, I mean, it was a great experience. One thing I could say too, so I think the job I have right now, I say is my dream job. It's everything I've ever wanted to do. But the difference when I think about teaching and what I'm doing now is I would go into the classroom. No matter how little I slept, no matter how I was feeling, every day I knew I was going to laugh and enjoy myself every single day, guaranteed. I don't necessarily have that feeling with the job I got now. Even though I love it, it's not the same. But when I was in the classroom, even too, I remember I had a student who was identified as like a problem student, like behaviorally. And it was my first year teaching. And I didn't necessarily know what to do. I knew why I was called into the classroom, but I didn't necessarily know how to execute. So I followed suit with everyone else. I saw how they treated the student. And so I treated her the same. Rule with an iron fist. You know, as soon as something happens, you shut it down immediately. And it just wasn't working. I was getting the same results as everybody else. And I just switched it up and I just started like, I knew I wanted to get into teaching, not because of the ABC 1, 2, 3 piece. Because I wanted to have relationships, I wanted to mentor kids. And so I switched it up. I'm like, all right, let me try something different. And I made sure I gave her voice. Every time something came up, I'm like, I speak, but I always give you an opportunity to speak if I don't let you speak first, right? And once I made that switch with her, I remember seeing this immediate change. And I remember I had a few different instructional coaches, and one of them came in at the end of the school year and was like, that student has gone from the most disruptive to the most active and engaged participant in your classroom. And I think it was really that switch. And I think also with her too, I had this extra in because in my first week of teaching, I can't say I was like this great teacher. It was my first week, but she told me, she was like, you're my favorite teacher I've ever had because you look like me. It's in 6th grade. And I was like, okay, we got something to work with.
Markus, thank you very much.
Can I do one thing?
Yes.
One more thing. So I didn't put this into my presentation, but I know last time I was here, they were like, the Rotary wants to support. And so they were like, you should make an ask. And so one thing that we're doing this summer in June, we're having a gala. And this gala to me is our way of like showing the community who we are. It's like our coming out party. And so for the gala, one thing I wanted to do was auction off experiences. So if anybody had a connection to like a restaurant where we can say, you get to buy this experience to be in this restaurant, or any type of thing that would like engage people or excite people and make them want to be a part of it, please let me know, because that's what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to have this gala to really show who we are. And of course, there's going to be a fundraising component to it too, but I don't want to just auction off things. I want to auction off experiences. I want people to come as an individual, but leave ingratiated in this Black Men Teach community and this network. And I think one of those things, when they go and they actually buy something from us, I want it to be this experience is memorable and wants them to come back the year following. So thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Great, thank you. And Markus, we're going to have you sign a book, which will go to Way to Grow, so that a 3rd grader in our community will have a book signed by a leader in our community. And you get to take home this bookmark that is made by a group that we support in Haiti. So thank you so much for being with us today. We really do appreciate it and look forward to working with you more in the future. So thank you. Rotarians, have a great Rotary week. Let me just tell you, next week you don't want to miss either because it's our holiday program right here. And we will have hot breakfast again next week, I am told. So make sure you're here next week. I want to thank Grant Merritt for being our day chair today. To the Rooters, thank you. Brock and Ross, thank you so much for all you do. And Mary Pat and Dick, thank you for your work out there at the sign-in table. You all have a great Rotary week.